Megan Hart stood in her small Oregon kitchen, the last rays of the evening sun slicing through the window and casting long golden lines across the floor. She held a cup of tea in her trembling hands, though she hadn't taken a sip, and stared at the empty room, her mind spinning with months of unspoken worries. The divorce years ago had left her stronger, or so she had told herself, but today she felt fragile, the weight of loneliness pressing down on her shoulders. The front door opened and her son Ethan walked in, backpack slung over one shoulder, expecting the usual calm smile, the warm greeting he had grown up with. Instead he froze. He froze because his mother looked unlike herself, her makeup smudged from earlier tears, her blouse wrinkled as if she had been holding onto her burdens for too long, her posture heavy with unspoken sorrow. There was a quiet strength in her always, but now she seemed small, almost invisible under the weight of everything she had hidden from him, and the sight hit Ethan harder than he expected. "Mom," he whispered, his voice tentative. Megan didn't respond, didn't move, she simply let him see her exactly as she was. Broken, raw, real. For years she had protected him from the harsh truths of life, pretending she was always strong, always steady, but now she allowed herself to be seen as vulnerable. The silence in the kitchen felt heavy, almost sacred, as if the air itself was waiting for a confession. Ethan's mind raced, trying to understand the shift in her demeanor, the sudden fragility he had never noticed before. He felt a surge of concern, a mix of fear and empathy, because this was not the mother who had always been untouchable, the mother whose smile could calm any storm. She finally spoke, voice low and cracking, "You're home early." And Ethan realized her tone carried more than words. It carried exhaustion, sadness, and a quiet plea for understanding. She hadn't lied, hadn't hidden her emotions in that moment. She simply allowed him to witness her humanity, something she rarely let anyone, including him, see. Ethan's heart tightened. He wanted to rush to her, to hold her, to make her feel safe again, but he stayed still, letting the gravity of the moment sink in. In that frozen instant, the kitchen transformed from a familiar, comforting space into a place of revelation, a quiet battlefield of emotions where past pretenses dissolved, and truth took its fragile, undeniable form. The evening sun continued to stretch across the room, golden and indifferent, highlighting every line of worry on her face, every crease in her blouse, every tremor in her hands, and Ethan's mind was filled with the realization that life, as they had known it, had quietly shifted. There would be no pretending tonight. The mother who had shielded him from pain, who had been the anchor in all storms, was now asking, in the most silent way possible, for him to anchor her. And he understood. He understood that the years of her strength had been a quiet performance for the world, and now in this one vulnerable moment, she had let it all fall away. The air was thick with unsaid words, the hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of the floorboards marking the seconds that stretched like hours, and Ethan, though only 21, felt the responsibility settle on his shoulders in a new way. He wasn't a child anymore, but neither was she invincible, and the roles they had once understood were shifting in a way that was both terrifying and intimate. He looked at her, memorizing the lines of her face, the tremble in her hands, the heaviness in her eyes, knowing this was a side of his mother he had never witnessed and might never see again if he turned away. Megan, sensing his silent presence, didn't move or speak further. She let him absorb it all, let him see her fail, let him witness the quiet unraveling of someone he had always believed to be unbreakable. The moment stretched, fragile and tense, until finally Ethan, with a small cautious step, placed his backpack down and whispered again, "Mom, what's wrong?" The words were soft, but they carried the weight of concern, of love, and of a dawning realization that life, in its quiet and relentless way, had brought them to a point where truths could no longer be hidden. Megan, without looking away, without wiping her tears or trying to compose herself, let him have this moment, this unguarded glimpse into the part of her she had kept hidden for so long. The kitchen, bathed in the fading golden light, became a place where barriers dissolved, where a mother's silence spoke louder than any words could, and where a son, frozen for a moment in disbelief, finally understood that sometimes the strongest people need someone to lean on too. This was not the end, not yet, but it was the start of a conversation that had been a long time coming, a silent agreement that no matter what had happened before, they would face what came next together. In that suspended moment, Megan let the tears fall, the silence stretch, and Ethan let himself feel the protective, urgent love for the woman who had always protected him, knowing that everything would change from here, but also knowing that he would not let her face it alone. Ethan slowly set his backpack down, the weight of what he had just seen pressing on him, and took a careful step closer to his mother, Megan, who was still standing in the middle of the kitchen, hands trembling and eyes fixed somewhere beyond the room, as if searching for a place to hide from reality. "Mom, talk to me. Please," he said softly, his voice filled with concern, and for the first time, Megan allowed herself to meet his gaze, her lips trembling and her voice breaking as she whispered, "I don't want you to worry." But Ethan could see the truth behind the words, the exhaustion, the sorrow, the months of quiet struggle that she had carried alone, the silent battles she never shared because she thought she had to be strong for him. He moved closer, sitting down at the kitchen table, his eyes never leaving hers, trying to bridge the distance that had always existed between her struggles and his perception of her strength. Megan's hand shook as she held the mug, and for a moment, neither of them spoke, the air thick with unspoken feelings. Then finally she admitted, her voice cracking under the weight of suppressed emotions, "It's your father." Ethan's heart skipped, the name itself pulling a shadow across the kitchen. A reminder of the past he had only partially understood, of the divorce that had left their family divided, and her to carry the weight of everything alone. She continued, explaining how he had called today to tell her about his remarriage, expecting her to somehow absorb the news gracefully, to feel happiness for him even as it stirred memories of pain and abandonment. Ethan felt a mixture of anger, confusion, and empathy, his mind racing to process not just the news but the impact it had on the woman who had been his anchor through every difficult year. Megan's attempt at a smile only deepened the tension in the room, her eyes glossy with unshed tears as she whispered, "He wanted me to hear it from him. Isn't that something?" The bitter irony of the question hung in the air, and Ethan, though only 21, felt a sudden surge of protectiveness, realizing that his mother, who had always been the one to protect him, now needed him to be her anchor, even for a moment. He reached for her hand across the table, fingers brushing against hers, and said softly, "Mom, you don't have to be strong right now. Not for me." The words seemed to surprise her, as if she had forgotten that someone could care about her in this way, that someone could see her fragility without judgment. Megan's lips quivered, and she allowed herself to be vulnerable, letting Ethan's presence provide a small measure of comfort amid the storm of emotions swirling in her heart. She began to speak again, hesitantly, explaining how she had carried the weight of pretending, of keeping herself composed, of shielding Ethan from disappointment and heartbreak, all while silently enduring the sting of his father's absence, and the constant reminder of the life that could have been. Ethan listened, absorbing every word, feeling the layers of his mother's pain and resilience intertwine, and he realized that the woman he had always admired as unshakable had been quietly struggling, hiding the depth of her sadness to ensure that he never had to feel the same. As she spoke, Ethan felt tears prick his eyes, the reality of her loneliness and the courage it had taken to face each day sinking in, and he held her hand tighter, grounding her in the present, reminding her that she was not alone anymore. Megan's voice wavered as she admitted that she had spent years pretending everything was fine, that she had smiled through heartbreak, and that today, facing this news about his father's remarriage, the fragile mask she wore had finally slipped. Ethan's heart ached for her, and he leaned forward, keeping his voice steady despite the emotions rising inside him. "Mom, you've always been my strength. Now let me be yours. Let me help you carry this." Megan looked at him, stunned by the maturity and compassion in his words, and for the first time in a long while, she felt the heavy burden on her shoulders lighten, even if just a little. She let herself exhale, allowing the tension to flow out of her body, knowing that she didn't have to face the news, the heartbreak, or the uncertainty alone. The kitchen, once a place of ordinary routines, had transformed into a space of confession and understanding, where mother and son shared an unspoken bond strengthened by vulnerability and trust. Ethan's presence, steady and comforting, allowed Megan to confront feelings she had suppressed for years, and he, in turn, learned the depth of his mother's struggles and the sacrifices she had made silently. The conversation flowed, tentative at first, then more openly, as Megan admitted the pain, the disappointment, and the fear of facing life without her carefully constructed shields. Ethan listened without interruption, holding her hand, offering quiet encouragement, and making it clear that her feelings were valid, that her humanity was not a burden, and that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. In that kitchen, with the fading sunlight casting warm shadows, mother and son connected in a way that bridged the years of distance and independence, realizing that life's difficulties were not something one had to endure alone. Megan felt a wave of relief wash over her, mingled with lingering sadness, as she allowed herself to be supported by Ethan's presence, acknowledging that the role of protector and protected could shift without diminishing love or respect. The emotional weight of the moment pressed on both of them, yet it also carried a quiet hope, the hope that vulnerability could bring them closer, that sharing pain could heal, and that their bond could grow stronger even in the face of life's inevitable hardships. And as the evening deepened, the hum of the refrigerator and the soft creak of the floor became a background to their connection, a testament to the fact that sometimes, the most profound strength is found in allowing oneself to be seen, to be human, and to accept help from those who love you most. Megan's tears no longer felt like weakness, and Ethan's concern no longer felt like fear. They had entered a space where love, understanding, and mutual support replaced pretense and silence. This was not a solution to all their problems, nor a magical repair of the past, but it was a crucial step toward honesty, connection, and shared resilience, a moment where a mother and son recognized the unspoken truth that facing life together could make even the heaviest burdens more bearable, and that the strength of one could sustain the other in ways neither had fully realized until now. Ethan watched his mother, Megan, as she nervously paced the kitchen, her hands twisting together and her eyes darting toward the buzzing phone on the counter, each vibration making her flinch, and he felt a deep ache in his chest, knowing she was carrying burdens alone that should never have been hers to bear. "Mom, who is it?" he asked, voice steady but filled with concern, and she hesitated, biting her lip and glancing at him with a mix of fear and shame, refusing to answer at first, as if saying the truth aloud might make it all real. He stepped closer, gently stopping her, holding her arm for a moment as if anchoring her to the present, and repeated softly, "Mom, you're scaring me. Please tell me." Megan's shoulders slumped as she finally let herself speak, admitting in a quiet, trembling voice that it wasn't her father calling this time, which surprised Ethan, and he pressed gently, urging her to continue. She closed her eyes, shame and worry etched into her face, and whispered that it was something else entirely, a notice from the bank about the mortgage, a reminder that despite her hard work and sacrifices, she had fallen behind and risked losing the home she had fought so hard to keep. Ethan's stomach tightened, his protective instincts surging as he realized that the woman who had always shielded him from pain now faced a fear she had tried to hide, and he reached for her hands, holding them firmly, letting her know she was not alone in this battle. Megan's voice shook as she explained that she had tried to fix everything before he noticed, to maintain the illusion that life was under control, but reality had caught up, and now she had to confront the possibility of losing not just the house, but the stability she had provided for years. Ethan's mind raced as he thought about the sacrifices she had made. The long shifts, the quiet dinners, the constant effort to keep life running smoothly, and he felt a mixture of admiration and sorrow, realizing that the image of strength she had always projected had been built on exhaustion and silent struggle. He spoke softly, with a maturity beyond his years, telling her that she didn't have to face this alone, that he would help, that together they could make a plan to solve the problem, and Megan looked at him with tears in her eyes, overwhelmed by the realization that her son, whom she had raised to rely on her, was now offering her the very same support. She admitted how guilty she felt, how she hated that she had let herself fall behind, how she had feared showing weakness to the person she loved most, and Ethan reassured her that vulnerability was not weakness, that letting someone help was a sign of courage, and that they would face this together, step by step. The kitchen, once a simple space for meals and routines, had transformed into a place of confession and reassurance, where fears and failures could be shared without judgment, and Megan allowed herself to lean on Ethan, feeling the comfort of his presence and the strength of his resolve. He suggested practical solutions, adjusting his part-time work schedule to help with bills, contacting the bank together, creating a budget, showing her that while the situation was serious, it was not hopeless, and that planning and collaboration could turn fear into action. Megan listened, absorbing every word, feeling both the weight of the problem and the relief of having someone to share it with. her mind racing through possibilities while her heart found solace in the simple fact that she no longer had to endure these worries alone. Ethan's encouragement and calm guidance reminded her of the many times she had steadied him when life felt overwhelming. And now she realized that roles could shift, that love and support were reciprocal, and that allowing herself to be helped did not diminish her strength or worth. They spoke through the evening, discussing details, options, and contingencies, but amid the planning, they shared moments of quiet reflection, allowing themselves to feel the emotions they had suppressed for too long: fear, worry, relief, and gratitude, all intertwining in a way that strengthened their bond. Megan admitted the loneliness of carrying everything herself, and Ethan acknowledged the courage it had taken, making her feel seen and understood. And for the first time in months, she felt a lightness, a sense that together they could navigate challenges that had seemed insurmountable alone. The phone's buzzing became less threatening as they worked through the next steps, as Megan realized she didn't have to face every difficult call or letter alone. And Ethan felt a deep satisfaction in being able to offer tangible support to the person who had always been his emotional anchor. In that kitchen, surrounded by the fading sunlight and the quiet hum of the house settling into evening, mother and son experienced a profound moment of connection, a mutual recognition that life's hardships were less daunting when shared, and that love, empathy, and partnership could turn fear into hope. Megan allowed herself to feel relief and trust, knowing that mistakes or delays didn't define her worth, and Ethan understood the depth of her resilience and the importance of stepping in to provide care when someone he loved needed it most. By the end of the evening, while bills and responsibilities remained, the emotional burden had lightened, replaced by a sense of teamwork, understanding, and quiet courage, and the bond between them had grown stronger, rooted in honesty, empathy, and the shared determination to face life's challenges together, creating a foundation of trust and support that would sustain them in the days and weeks ahead. The moment marked a turning point. Megan no longer had to hide her struggles, and Ethan no longer saw his mother as untouchable, but as human, deserving of care and attention. And in that realization, both found hope, connection, and the beginning of a renewed partnership, facing life's uncertainties side by side with determination, love, and mutual respect. Ethan gently took the phone from Megan's trembling hands and placed it on the counter, the buzzing fading into the background as he looked at her with steady, unwavering eyes. And for the first time, Megan allowed herself to breathe without the weight of isolation pressing on her chest. "Mom," he said softly, "nothing is falling apart. Not while I'm here." His words, simple but full of conviction, reached through the fear and worry that had consumed her for days, and she felt a strange mix of relief and disbelief, realizing she had been carrying so much alone when support was right there beside her all along. She covered her mouth with her hand, tears spilling freely, not from shame, but from the shock of being seen and cared for in a way she hadn't allowed herself to experience in years. And Ethan pulled her gently toward the table, guiding her to sit while he remained beside her, offering quiet comfort. For years Megan had held everything together. The bills, the long hours at work, the heartbreak from the past, the loneliness that never seemed to end, all while pretending that nothing could shake her, that she could face life's storms alone. Now, in that small kitchen bathed in the fading evening light, she realized she didn't have to pretend anymore. Ethan's hand remained in hers, steady and reassuring, and she let herself lean on him emotionally, a reversal of roles that felt both strange and profoundly comforting. He spoke with a calm authority, not commanding but encouraging, telling her that they would create a plan together, that he would take extra shifts, that they would contact the bank, and that the home she had fought so hard to protect would not be lost. Megan felt the tightness in her chest begin to ease, the fear slowly replaced by hope, the knowledge that even in uncertainty, she was no longer alone. The bond between them deepened in that moment, strengthened by honesty, vulnerability, and the realization that love could be expressed not just in words but in presence and action. Ethan reminded her gently that letting someone help was not a sign of weakness, but a reflection of trust and courage, and Megan, for the first time in a long while, felt safe in her son's strength and compassion. The kitchen, once a place of routine and daily chores, had become a sanctuary of understanding, where emotions could be shared openly and solutions could be sought together. Megan's tears continued to fall, but now they were mingled with a sense of relief and gratitude, a recognition that the burden she had carried alone for so long could be shared, and that facing challenges together made even the heaviest problems feel manageable. She looked at Ethan, seeing in him not just the boy she had raised but a young man capable of empathy, resilience, and support, and she realized that her love for him was reciprocated in a way that made her heart lighter, her spirit braver, and her hope stronger. They spoke through the evening, planning practical steps, discussing how to adjust schedules, reviewing finances, and mapping out the weeks ahead. But amidst the logistics, they allowed themselves moments of quiet reflection, laughing softly at small memories, sharing feelings they had held back, and simply being present with one another. Megan admitted the weight of years spent pretending to be unshakable, and Ethan acknowledged the courage it had taken to protect him, creating a profound emotional exchange that healed both in small but meaningful ways. She realized that the role of protector was not one she had to maintain alone, and he understood that caring for someone he loved could be an expression of strength, compassion, and responsibility. As night settled outside, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the quiet creak of the floorboards became a comforting backdrop to their conversation, a reminder that life continued even as challenges arose, and that facing them together made them more bearable. Megan felt a sense of hope she hadn't known in years, a feeling that even though bills, deadlines, and responsibilities remained, she had regained control not through isolation, but through connection and trust. Ethan felt a quiet pride, not in fixing everything, but in being there, in listening, in offering tangible support and emotional reassurance, and in knowing that sometimes being strong means letting someone else be strong for you too. The evening passed in a blend of planning, conversation, and emotional release. The kitchen transformed into a space where mother and son could navigate fear, uncertainty, and responsibility together, creating a shared resilience that neither had experienced before. Megan allowed herself to feel relief, trust, and love in equal measure, while Ethan recognized the depth of her endurance and the importance of stepping in when those we love need care most. By the end of the night, while the challenges remained, the emotional burden had lightened significantly, replaced with hope, partnership, and mutual understanding, and both felt the quiet power of connection, the comfort of not facing life's difficulties alone, and the beginning of a renewed, deeper bond. In that kitchen, as the last light faded, they realized that this moment was not a magical fix for everything, but it was the start of a new chapter where honesty, support, and love could guide them through the storms, making even the heaviest burdens feel lighter and the uncertain future seem manageable when faced together, side by side, with courage, empathy, and unwavering care.